Well, as part of his continuing effort to mislead the public from his refusal to release the complete Epstein files, today Donald Trump tried yet another maneuver with his public relations blitz and releasing this, frankly, ridiculous transcript between his former criminal defense attorney, Todd Blanche, now a high ranking official at the Department of Justice, and Ghislaine Maxwell, the notorious pedophile, now serving 20 years in a federal prison, or I should actually say a minimum security federal prison camp. Now, also present at this interview was David Maxwell, her criminal defense attorney. Now, I wanted to make this video because as someone who has taken over 100 plus depositions and has 10 years plus as experience as a trial attorney in a past life, I saw this and there's some things that really jumped off the page for me. And I wanted to show you just how clearly this is a farcical procedure to try to lie to the public, and it was completely a setup from the start. So let's look first at the transcript. And what I want you to notice here is that David Marcus, the criminal defense attorney, is answering and asking questions and coaching the witness again and again and again, always on very key issues. And you may not be aware of this, but this is completely improper. In like a civil case, in a deposition, if the defense attorney tried to answer questions or talk or coach the witness, he would actually get in a lot of trouble with the court. He'd get sanctioned and have to pay for a new deposition to take place. And if this happened in a courtroom, guarantee you basically same kind of outcome. It would not be good. Now, here, let's get to it. First thing, Todd Blanche, were you on the plane to Ghislaine Maxwell? She says, yes. Who else was on that plane, if you remember? Now, what I want you to see here is that this is a key issue that's in the media. You know, they say this person was on the plane, that person was on the plane. People throw that insult back and forth on social media. And as we go through, it's always a question like that on a key factual question that David Marcus jumps in on. Who else was on that plane? David Marcus. Before Ghislaine Maxwell, his client, can even answer, was it President Clinton on the plane? And she says, oh yeah, Clinton, of course. You know, there you go. That is coaching the witness. That is exactly a setup. That's what Todd Blanche probably told his friend, David Marcus, before this took place, what to say. And then he went and coached Ghislaine Maxwell, which we'll never know because that's protected by the attorney-client privilege. Now, that's egregious, but it gets worse. Next, David Marcus. Again, he should not be talking at all on this transcript. Maybe objecting once or twice to, or telling his client not to incriminate herself, but that's it. He's a central feature. Well, first, did you know, to be short, he says, sorry. Well, first, you know, to be short, there is no list. There is no client list, nothing like that. This is basically like a complete, like a statement, question, sort of cobbled together, but it is clearly telling Ghislaine Maxwell exactly what to say. And what is it about? The client list. Remember, Pam Bondi totally stepped in it by saying, you know, there's a client list. It's on her desk waiting to be released. This was meant to fix Pam Bondi's mistake. I guarantee you. And what does she say? Of course, oh no, nothing like that. There's no client list. Moving on. David Marcus, did you ever see any of these people with underage women talking about Trump and others? No. So the reason I'm saying this, and she goes on and basically says no and explains. And again, client list is a key issue. It's something that's in the media a lot. And why the hell is this guy even talking and asking the question? It's absurd. Next, David Marcus. Did you ever see him blackmail? Never, she says, a client. And she says, no. Again, whether there was blackmail that happened, whether there is anything like that is a key issue. And he's the one asking the question. What the hell is Todd Blanche doing here? It's absurd. And it's not just that there's a couple examples here. It's that they're on key issues. But I also want you to see how much this guy appeared in the transcript. This guy who should not have been saying anything. It's like 50 plus times. So what you have here is at the end of any deposition or court transcript or, you know, an interview transcript taken by a court reporter is you'll have the page number and then, the page, line number. He's in there like 50 plus times. It was basically an interview with David Marcus. And it's not just that. I mean, I think that's the key thing that really stands out to me. But there's some other things that show you cannot trust this procedure today. It was a conspiracy to basically lie and mislead the American public and protect pedophiles and potentially Donald Trump himself. It is the fact that Todd Blanche, in addition to everything else, has a really clear and blatant ethical conflict. You know, there are duties that lawyers owe to their clients, you know, and some of those duties extend past the termination of the attorney-client relationship. Attorney-client privilege, the duty of loyalty being another one. So because Donald Trump was formerly represented by Todd Blanche has a duty of loyalty, meaning he can't take new representation or on a new client where that representation would be materially limited by his duties to Donald Trump. Well, think about it. The Department of Justice, like one of their main things they're going to be doing is investigating, They do a lot of stuff, but they definitely investigate the executive branch. They're going to be doing that more than any other agency in all of the federal government. So when he took this job, and he knew that he was going to be doing something that is contrary to his duty of loyalty to his former client. And that proves he was put in this position to act as Trump's personal attorney, because the entire concept of him even being in this position is itself a conflict of interest. And he's not some low-level DOJ attorney who can be sort of walled off and do like what's called a Chinese wall to ethically insulate him from any work involving Donald Trump. No, he's very, very high-ranking, like almost at the top of the Department of Justice. So there's no way to avoid it. Moving on beyond that, they should not have been talking to Ghislaine Maxwell at all. If you wanted to get factual information, if this was a good faith investigation, they'd go talk to the victims. They're the factual witnesses. They're the ones who know. Ghislaine Maxwell has a bias and a motive to lie, getting moved to a federal prison camp, getting special treatment, getting a pardon. And instead of going through all that, this untrustworthy person, who, by the way, has been basically shown to have committed perjury multiple times and has admitted being a liar and lied in this deposition or this transcript today, you could go talk to the actual witnesses who were the victims, who have factual information, and who do not have any of these biases or motives to, mislead, because their civil cases are over. The ones where they sued, Epstein's estate to get money for, the horrible things that happened to them. So instead, they went here because they knew Ghislaine Maxwell was a captive audience. She could be coached to say exactly what Donald Trump wanted, and that's why this whole thing took place like it did. And the final thing that, to me really stood out as someone who's spent a lot of time looking into and, even writing about on my Substack, the death investigation, the very flawed death investigation regarding Jeffrey Epstein. There's a conclusion reached by Ghislaine Maxwell here that is the opposite of what the Trump administration and, actually the Biden administration and the first Trump administration with the OIG report, because it was crossed over both because it lasted 4 years, what they have said about his death. And the problem with this is you have Ghislaine Maxwell saying, I think he was killed. Then you have the government saying, no, believe us, he was actually committed suicide. That's a key issue. And the fact that they disagree on that means you would have to believe it just doesn't make sense for the Trump administration to say, this is a trustworthy person with regard to the Epstein files, what's in him, and the whole universe of Epstein stuff. Even though what the main things that deals with Epstein, the main conclusion about what happened to him, they disagree on. It just doesn't make any sense. It's almost as if one is lying and one is not, and we don't know who. So anyways, I tried to make that as brief as possible. I hope that was informative for you guys. Remember to like and subscribe on my channel. There'll be lots of Donald Trump stuff, lots of current event stuff, and I appreciate you guys